12 Days by Russian Wolf 7. Day 1. Harry didn't want to go to breakfast. He really didn't want to go. Ron yelled at him for a solid 10 minutes before Hermione came up and took his place. Eventually, they had to resort to threatening to announce it to the Great Hall, which Harry was getting really sick of and had nowhere to combat. So he got out of bed, got dressed, and trudged down the hall, Ron and Hermione each taking an arm and preventing him from running away. They walked in just as the post arrived. Harry hurried to an empty seat and busied himself with breakfast. He couldn't look up. He refused. Pancakes and orange juice. That's all he would do. 12 days of this. That was a pretty small number, 12. Less than 2 weeks. And he didn't have to tell them on Christmas Day. He could just tell Ron and Hermione that he had been rejected and didn't want to talk about it. Ron elbowed him. Harry, look. No. I'm going to describe it to you if you don't watch. Ron threatened. Fine, whatever. I'm not looking. Okay, fine, Ron said irritably. I didn't want to have to skip breakfast to narrate your life for you, but I'm just that good a friend. A barn owl just swooped down and dropped the package off in front of him. He's smirking, showing off to his friends that he's already getting gifts, I assume. Now he looks confused, probably because there's no note or card or anything. I think... Hang on. Harry waited, not impatiently stabbing his pancakes with his fork. What is it? He asked eventually. Crabbe pointed at something on the package, and then Pansy took it from Malfoy in his... I'm not sure. Looking confused and angry and jealous. Malfoy snatched it back, and now he's opening it. Harry couldn't stop the blush from creeping up his neck, and he continued to mutilate his pancakes. And... now he looks more confused. Ron snorted. He's probably never gotten such a cheap gift before. Pansy's reaching for one of the ends, and he slapped her hand away. Seems he wants his gift all to himself, or the git. Anyway, Ron's words were drowned out by the blast from the cracker. It echoed through the hall, followed by a ringing silence, and all heads turned towards the Slytherin table. Ron laughed. The smoke's cleared. He's standing up and taking a bow. Show off. Like a bloody cracker is a big deal. Now everyone's laughing. I can hear... Harry snapped. Fine, sorry. Anyway, he's putting on the top hat. You should probably look up. I bet you'd find it dashing or something I don't want to think about. Slytherin called it balloons. Those are by the ceiling now. I can't see if there's anything else. Harry glanced around. Everyone had returned to their previous conversations, and it seemed safe enough to sneak a peek over at the Slytherins. That was how Harry learned Draco Malfoy looked really, really good in a top hat. It didn't help that he was smirking, or had a slight blush, and that his eyes were sparkling. Harry rolled his eyes at how pleased Malfoy was with just a Christmas cracker. But, well, he did look very attractive. Harry returned to his pancakes. Was that really so bad? Ron asked. Shut up, Harry snapped. Then Hermione's gift arrived, and it was also a cracker. The following explosive bang and cloud of smoke served to distract Harry at least a little bit. A shower of snow fell over her, which made Harry smile, and the bright pink wizard's hat she donned was enough to make him laugh. He just focused on her hat, and not Malfoy's, because that was much better. She also got a kazoo, though Seamus took it from her before she could give it a go, and spent the rest of lunch being as loud and obnoxious as possible. Annoying, yes, but any distraction was welcome. He saw Malfoy again at lunch. He purposefully arrived early to avoid him, but it didn't work. The Great Hall was mostly empty, making him all too obvious. He was leaning against the end of the table with Blaze, probably waiting for the rest of his friends to arrive. Harry stumbled and Ron had to grab his arm to prevent him from falling. It's just a hat, Hermione said quietly. Is it really that bad? No, Harry snapped, taking a seat. Good, I'm glad it doesn't bother you, she said, adjusting her bright pink hat. Well, it doesn't, Harry said. He could do this. He'd just have to keep his eyes on his meal, and he'd be fine. As long as he didn't see Malfoy, there wouldn't be a problem. Hey, Granger! Harry squeezed his eyes shut. The last thing he needed was his voice in his head. Got the short end of the hat stick. I'm enjoying myself quite a bit, thank you very much, she replied loftily. I find making people laugh is the greatest gift of all. Malfoy snorted. I drastically prefer to garner attention by flaunting my looks rather than having to draw attention away from my... Bullshit, Malfoy, Ron interrupted with a glare. Don't you dare insult him. Aw, the weasel's standing up for its girlfriend, Malfoy simpered. How very touching. If I hadn't spent the whole day being fawned over, I dare say I wouldn't have the patience to put up with you. Harry was not pleased. He hadn't meant for everyone to be distracted by Malfoy's looks. Nor had he expected him to be such a prat, but he supposed it was only his fault for feeding his ego. Stop it, Harry said. Come on. Professor Slughorn is already looking over here. Do you really want to spend the holiday in detention? Harry's right, Hermione said, laying a hand on Ron's arm. He's not worth our time. Malfoy said something under his breath, and Blaise snickered, but at least that was the end of that. And while Harry did sneak one glance at Malfoy during lunch, it was only one, and nobody noticed. All in all, he felt pretty good about it. Dinner was not good. Dean and Seamus sat opposite Harry, sporting identical knowing smirks. Harry didn't like the look of that at all and struck up a very loud, very boring conversation with Hermione about their potions homework. Dean and Seamus waited patiently, and when Hermione had finally talked herself out, Harry started in with Ron on who would be playing at the next World Cup. But Ron's mouth was too full to talk properly, and Harry found himself at the mercy of his housemates.
Well,
Seamus said. That was subtle, Dean added.
The very pinnacle of subtlety,
Seamus continued. I don't know what you're talking about, Harry said, focusing on his food.
You decide to pull some 12 days of Christmas stunt, and look, the very next day, Malfoy gets a gift,
Seamus said. We were watching the mail very carefully, Dean said. Only Malfoy, Hermione, and a third-year Ravenclaw got packages. After some reconnaissance, we ascertained that her mail was nothing more than a book she needed for extra credit. Harry stared at them. Reconnaissance?
We have connections in every house, Harry,
Seamus said seriously.
If we need to know something, we'll know it.
Harry rolled his eyes. You're bloody ridiculous. Do you really think I'd send a package during breakfast? When everyone could see it? I'm not that daft. Dean's face fell, but Seamus was still smirking.
That's not what you said last night,
he replied.
Before you charmed us out, you were quite clearly complaining about how everyone would notice.
Yeah, and then I changed my mind, Harry said slowly, as if Seamus was entirely stupid. I might be slow, but I'm not an idiot. Seamus eyed him very carefully.
We'll be keeping an eye on the situation.
A very close eye, Dean added. Whatever. On the way back to the tower, Ron glanced around to make sure they were alone and grinned. Nice save, Harry. Just so I know, when did you send the gift? Harry flushed. Now, just after dinner, so they wouldn't brag about it in the middle of the Great Hall. Too bad you didn't actually do that, Hermione said. That would have been quite clever. But then he wouldn't have gotten Uncle Malfoy all day, Ron said, still grinning. Isn't that right, Harry? Whatever. And you wouldn't be able to see his face when he opens the packages, Hermione said. Even if you need me to narrate it for you, Ron added. Whatever.